Hey, good evening, everybody. Dan Turbyville, and this is Powerhouse Fence Show. Or maybe it's good morning, good day, whatever time of day it is for you, good that. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for listening. It's good to have you here. So today I'm going to talk about some examples of when we've told people no, why I think it was okay, what led to telling them no. Would I do it again? Were there any consequences for telling them no? That's what we're going to get into. But before we do, I want to thank our sponsors, Memphis Fence Company, Simpalo, and I'm still not ready to tell you about the something new cooking just yet, but it's coming. It is coming. We have a few partners here on the show, the Thornton Fence Consulting Group. There are links to all of our partners in the description to the show. So if you want to check out any of their stuff, you can. Fence News, Fence Industry Publication, to be specific. They have Pete and Jake, good people, and they put out a good magazine. Easy G Manufacturing, they make the big orange equipment that you see at trade shows, make fence hogs and other things along those lines. So check them out if you're looking for some of that. I am live. The phone number is on the bottom of the screen as normal. 901-878-4987. If anybody wants to call, feel free to do so. There's a bug that's flying around right in my face, and it's a bit distracting. So thank you all for being here. I appreciate everybody that listens to the show. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for putting a heart right up here above me. And someone did. Someone clicked love. Robert Whitaker. Thank you. So thank you for all the positive feedback, and thank you all for being here. I do it for you. And if there's anything specific you want to hear me talk about, any guest subjects, questions, anything like that, feel free to let me know. You can contact us through social medias or reach out to one of these businesses that are behind my head, because the sponsors of the show, they can all get you in touch with me, we'll say. So Make-A-Wish fundraiser still in the thing. If anybody feels the need to make a charitable contribution somewhere, you can click the link in the description and do that there. So having said all of that, with no further ado, let's get into this show. So if you've listened to the show, you know I like history, right? You know I like to look at things that have happened in the past that kind of apply to what I'm talking about. And the one for today is Apple, Steve Jobs versus Adobe Flash. So when Apple launched the iPhone, Steve Jobs, he said, there's no support for Adobe Flash. I'd forgotten about this until I saw it, but I remember that some things wouldn't work on your iPhone way back when, right? Because it wouldn't work with Flash. So that was the standard for online video at the time. And there was a bunch of websites that relied on it. And Adobe, obviously, they were not very happy. And Steve Jobs said, no, sorry, not doing it. And then he wrote a letter that was published called Thoughts on Flash, which explained the reasons, mainly performance security. It was apparently a killer for battery life, stuff like that. You can go check that out if you want to know more. But he just said no. And like I said, at the time, that was the standard for online video and other content and websites, and he refused to put it on iPhones. And what happened? Did Apple go out of business? Did the iPhone flop? Did everybody hate him? No, none of those things happened. Right. What happened was the world adopted. So the way that the internet works, the way that web browsers are displayed changed, or web pages are displayed changed, so that they worked on iPhones. So then HTML5 was the new standard. Apple didn't give in, and the world moved on. Trader Joe's. So this is an interesting one to me, because I think it can apply to a lot of people's fence businesses, because Trader Joe's, they say they get constant requests to open new stores in every city in America, is what it said. I don't know how real that is or if that's exaggerated, but that's pretty impressive if they get one in every city. But anyway, so they refuse to aggressively expand because their business model requires specific supply chains and local control. And so they, even though they might have hundreds or thousands or whatever of people requesting that they open a store in a certain location, they'll tell them no until the time is right for them. And so the way that I think we can probably apply that to our own business is exactly what I just said, right? So you tell growth and expansion no if the time is not right for you. And I mean, I love growth. I love expansion. I want to conquer the world, right? But at the same time, there's some stuff that just doesn't make sense to do. And Trader Joe's apparently is an example of that. I didn't realize it before now. So we all learn that new together right now. All right. So I guess we can call this the elephant in the room, right? The first thing I want to address is saying no is hard. In fact, it's really hard a lot of times. It's not comfortable. It's not something that you want to do. It's not something I want to do anyway. Maybe there's some people out there that love it, but it's hard because I want to sell some jobs, right? We have crews that we need to keep going. We ultimately are in the business of trying to get jobs sold, right? And do fence jobs and collect checks for doing those fence jobs. And sometimes when you tell people no, it does not lead to that thing that we're here to try to accomplish. So it is hard, right? We might be worried about the way they react. So we don't want conflict. Okay. And again, maybe some people out there love it, right? But I personally, I don't want conflict. I don't want to deal with that stuff. And a lot of times telling people no ultimately leads to conflict. There are some people that will take it and say, okay, I can see your point. Uh, there's a lot of people that will not take it that way and they will not see your point, and the reaction they give you will not be a nice, bubbly, warm reaction. That's just the fact of it, right? So here we are. Um, Sometimes they'll get crazy. In fact, I want to tell you a funny story about. Well, I think it's funny about somebody getting a little crazy. It wasn't a customer, but it was someone that worked here, and their employment was terminated. And I don't think they were an employee. I think they were here through a temp agency even. And we sent them away and we said, no, no more. We're done. And next thing you know, the phone starts ringing and we start getting all these phone calls. And when I say all these phone calls, I mean like every 15, 20, 30 seconds, the phone was ringing back to back to back to back for days. And obviously, we were blocking phone numbers as this was happening. But as soon as we'd block one number, they just call from another one. And the phone was just ringing off the wall. And everybody in here was just answering phones all day because you never really knew, is it a customer? Or is it this person who's not very happy with us? And so they never really said anything, right? They didn't really talk on the other end of the line. Every once in a while, they might yell something or cuss us a little bit or something like that. But there was never a like, oh, hey, this is so and so, and I'm mad at you. Like there was never an acknowledgement of who it was on the other end of the phone. And so we dealt with that for a few days. I think we even like called the police and we're like, hey, this thing is happening. Can you do anything about it? And they said, can you prove it's them? Well, not really. Oh, okay. Well, then no, we can't do anything. And I think they answered the phone a few times, but they didn't get any different result than I remember for sure. There was a police officer in our office, and he sat there and answered the phone like 4 times in a row and said, "Hello, this is a Memphis police," and nothing. They would just hang up, and then they would call again. And he did it like 3 or 4 times, and nobody ever said anything, and they kept calling. So there was really nothing that anyone could do about it, but deal with it. And it sucked. But guess what? We got through it. We're still here. And every once in a while, we did answer the phone and it was a customer. So we might be worried if we tell somebody no, what are they going to do to our reputation? Are they going to go bash us on the internet, leave us a bunch of negative reviews, tell all their friends, and nobody's ever going to call us again? Probably not. Right? Like, yeah, they may go talk crap on the internet, but your phone's probably still going to ring. So we have to ask this question. And when we're deciding, do we want to say no or do we want to keep going? The question is, what does it cost to say no versus what does it cost to say yes? Right. And that's different for everybody. You got to make that choice. And from there, do what's right for you. If it's right to say no, say no. If it's not, well, then keep going, I guess. And I'm sorry that you have to keep going and deal with those crazy things because we've all been there and we've all dealt with some crazy. So I have a few scenarios we're going to run through. And these are real life things that happen to us. I'm not going to talk about people's names or any specifics, but I am going to tell you the stories. So, scenario number one, local general contractor that we have done quite a bit of work for over the years and still do. In fact, I think they called and asked for a price on something today. And they, so, I mean, they're good customers, right? And with them, it's like you get hooked up with one of their estimators, one of their project managers, something like that. And then you're kind of like in with that person as long as you do your job and take care of them and, all the stuff you're supposed to do, right? But it doesn't seem to be company wide. And so it's kind of like, you get one and you get their work, and then you might get a phone call from another and you try to get their work, and you just kind of like try to build that relationship with multiple people. It doesn't get you in with the company, right? So we don't, by any means, we don't do all the work for that general contractor, and I'm sure we don't even do work for all the work for the project managers and estimators and stuff like that we have built relationships with, but we do get work. So there's some estimators at this company that we've bid jobs to over and over and over and over and never sell anything. It's like no matter what you do for certain people at this company, they never hire us. And it gets pretty frustrating, right? Because it doesn't take very long to figure out there's a pattern. Oh, when it's not really their name, but oh, when Bob calls, we know we're not getting the job. Right. And so what happens is I don't tell them no. All right. And I know this episode is about telling people no, but I don't tell them no. What I do is if I get a request from Bob, that request is going to go to the bottom of the stack. And if I get to it, I get to it. If I don't, I don't. Right. I'm not going to tell him no. I'm not going to refuse to quote work to him, anything like that, but it's not going to be a priority. Uh, And maybe I just shouldn't do it, right? That's a real possibility. Maybe I shouldn't bid work to Bob at all and just ignore it and move on with my life. But I'm that guy where I think, oh man, one of these days, oh, Bob's going to send me a contract. I just know it. And I'll just, if everything else is done and I'm a little bit bored, then I'll bid a job to Bob. But if I'm not bored and I have some other stuff to do, Bob might not get a price. So that's how I handle scenario one, right? Is kind of you go on the back burner, right? I don't tell them no, but you're on the back burner. Okay. Again, the episode's about saying no. So scenario two, we're actually going to tell somebody no. Okay. So this also local general contractor. They hired us to do some work at a school, and we bid the job like normal. That whole process on the front end was just like any other job. Never thought too much about it. It was some ornamental fence that we fabricated and coated and all that stuff. So at some point during the process, we had made site visits, we measured everything, we did all that stuff, and we had to go get a color match. Okay. So we met with a project manager and somebody from the school. I don't really know who they were, but we met with them and they said, match this color right here. And so we go through our, what do they call it? Color deck or fan deck, or I don't know, something like that, right? It's a big thing with a bunch of colors. We go through that thing, standing there with everybody, find a color. Everybody's happy with it. Okay. That's the color that we choose. That's the one that we roll with. So we get to the point where we're ready to start setting post. We've coded them. We go out. We're ready to set post. And we pull up and we take one of the posts, and it's obviously different than the fence we're connecting to and extending, right? Although it was the color that they told us to match, and it did match fence that was on another part of the property, it didn't match the fence we were tying into. So we call the project manager and send pictures and say, hey, this color obviously doesn't match. It is what the owner told us to match. It is the right color. We didn't mess that up. And we had the little, color sample thing that we had picked the color with out there, and, sent a picture of that showing that it matched. We did all of those things right. And they said, go ahead. It is the right color. They're going to paint the fence to match that. That's their new color, whatever. So start setting post. So we did. We go out, we're setting post, everything's going fine. Well, I get a phone call, and this is from a person who's higher up in the general contractor company. And this guy is spitting mad. You know, when you get so mad, you're like yelling and all of that, and spit's flying. That's where he was. I mean, just livid because the color was wrong. And if I'm not mistaken, I think it was at like 5 or 6 that evening after we had already gone through the whole thing, been setting posts and stuff. I guess he drove by, right? And so he goes on his little rant, and I just say, "Hey, we went out, met with the owner, did the color match. You know, we showed up, realized it didn't match. We kept going. We we got through all of that, and we were approved with the color, even though it doesn't match." And, you know, this guy, he didn't care. He told me I was stupid and should be ashamed of myself for even taking a breath. That's being dramatic, but he was not happy, right? So at the end of the conversation, we kept setting post. Never apologized. Never was like, "Oh, okay, you're right. I'm sorry." You know, none of that kind of stuff, right? We just continued on. And so we got all our posts set. We start putting in panels. And I don't know, this is a week or two or something like that. Later, get a phone call. Same guy, the higher up. And again, just ballistic, going off. We're going too slow. You know, not at, all the fence panels weren't welded in. The stuff wasn't touched up right. All da 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 da, and just spitting mad again. Told me I hadn't communicated anything with anybody and all this. Well, the truth of it was, let's address these things kind of one by one, right? It wasn't welded because when we install custom built ornamental fence, step one is to put the fence in and tack it all in place. So, yeah, there was probably some stuff out there that wasn't welded out. It wasn't touched up because, again, we do that after everything is all welded out and done. We go back and touch it up, right? There's a reason it wasn't done. And the communication piece, well, I'd been communicating with the project manager that was assigned to the job as necessary throughout the course of construction, and it hadn't made it up to this higher up guy, right? And so, anyway, super mad. We worked through that thing and we finished the job. Well, actually, the story continues before we finished it. So, we kept installing fence, and I got a request from the project manager for more fence on the same site. And I called the guy and I said, "Look, I'm going to be honest with you. As long as this higher up is involved in the project and it's at that location, I have no interest in bidding the job. I'm not going to do it. You can find somebody else to do it. I'm sorry. I appreciate it, but I'm just not doing it. Right? I'm not going to deal with whatever is going on." So come to find out, I think the higher up guy like sat on the board at the school, and so he probably was getting questions from other board members or whatever that is, and that's what all led to him just being crazy about the job. And so, yeah, I just denied it. I said no. Right? I'm not going to deal with that. Yeah, sure, we got paid. It was a decent job. We did it. We made some money, but at the end of the day, it just wasn't worth dealing with the crap that came along with it, right? And just the fiasco of I don't even know, the fiasco of whatever that whole thing was, right? And so to this day, if I see a request come from that general contractor at that facility, nope, I'm not bidding it. I will not. I refuse. I don't think as long as I'm in this business, I don't think I will ever bid something to them at that place. Yeah. So I'm not gonna let a customer treat me that way. I'm not gonna let a customer treat our team that way. It's just not acceptable. So yeah. So there's number two. Number three, another scenario. Now this was back when we did residential fence, which so it's been at least a few years ago. We had a customer that was a real particular pain in the neck. Right? You've had the ones. You know the ones. And so this lady managed projects like home projects and probably the cleaning service and everything else at her mom's house for her mom. Okay. So her mom was a big wig at a big company, traveled a lot, all of that stuff. Daughter was 100% certainly a spoiled rich kid and treated everybody on our team here, at least, like we were all beneath her, right? We're all just a bunch of useless dogs and should bow to everything she wanted. And all of that crap, right? I don't tolerate that well. I don't like people that are like really that that are boastful for one, and for two, I don't like people that think that they're better than everybody else. I can't get behind that kind of stuff. Um, so this all came about as we were already working on the job. So it wasn't like it happened before we started. We were already working on the job and we finished. It I mean, it wasn't the end of the world, you know. She wasn't calling and cussing everybody out and jumping up and down and driving over here and doing any of that kind of crazy stuff. She was just a particular pain in the butt. And so we finished the job. At some point, I wound up talking to her mom and things kind of got smoothed over. Her mom was super cool. And so I talked to her and stuff kind of got smoothed over a little bit, calmed down, and we were able to finish the job and everybody was happy at the end, right? We did a good job. I think we had a few callbacks, right? Because I mean, she went out there and just nitpicked everything. I think she was probably a little bit mad that I'd talked to her mom. And I try my best. Well, I don't know if I try my best, but I think I'm pretty much a person that just I'm pretty open and I'm pretty honest, and I have a tendency to just tell you like I think, and that was she probably didn't appreciate it, right? I'm sure her mom told her some of the things that were said in the conversation, and I didn't try to do anything to like beat her down, right? I wasn't like, "Oh, your daughter's terrible. I don't ever want to talk to her again." None of that kind of stuff, but at the same time, I can be like, "Hey, this is what happened, right? These are the facts of it." And so anyway, we did have a few callbacks. And so we went out there and we took care of all the stuff. Like I said, everybody's happy at the end of the day. So then it seems like it was maybe like a month or two later, we got a call for another job. And so I said no. I appreciate the call. I do. I appreciate the business we've done with y'all in the past and all that stuff, but we're just not going to do it again. Right? We're not gonna go through that thing. We're gonna go work for some people who are reasonable, who are appreciative of the craft that we bring to their property, and that's who we want to work for. And so I turned him down and I sent an email to the daughter and the mom both at the same time saying, hey, like I said, I appreciate it, but we're not gonna do it. And it was an email instead of a phone call. Yeah, I included mom because it was mom's property, right? And mom traveled a lot for work, and so it was kind of hard to get her on the phone. And I mean, like traveled around the world, so it was kind of hard to get her on the phone. You never really know about time zones and stuff like that. But anyway, sent the email, said no, I'm not doing it. So respectfully declined to do the work, and it was all because of the daughter. Now, the mom did call me, and we had a bit of an awkward conversation, right? And again, I stressed, hey, I do appreciate you. I appreciate the business we've done, but we just can't do it again. So we got through that thing. I guess they hired somebody else. I don't know. Well, then it seems like it was maybe like a year or two gap between this and the next one. And we get a phone call again from the daughter. And we all knew her name, right? Because we had all been here. It was the same group of people in the office. And she called up here and acted like she didn't know anybody. She had never done anything here, and just tried to play it off like she was a brand new customer. And well, it didn't work. She got caught. And we said, hey, remember like a year or two, whatever ago, the last time we did work, we said we weren't going to do anymore. Oh, no, I don't know anything about what you're talking about. I never got any email. I never got this. I never got that. And I was like, I still have the email. Like, I don't delete emails ever. Okay. So I'll just throw that out there. I don't ever delete emails. Uh, and every once in a while, that will save your butt. If you can go back and pull out an email from 2 or 3 years ago and say, nope, this is exactly what I said to you. And I told you it was not going to work. You told us to put it in, and guess what? It didn't work. So don't blame me, right? Those scenarios happen. So it's a good idea to hang on to stuff. I'm not really organized with my emails. I probably have like 80,000 sitting in my inbox. And I know somebody listening to this thing probably just went, oh, geez. Because I know there's those people that clean it out every day and all. And I'm not. I'm not that guy. I'm sorry. But anyway, we didn't fall for the shenanigans, right? We knew who it was, and we just said, "Hey, sorry, but we're still not going to do any work for him. I still do think the mom's super cool, and I appreciate what she does in the world and all of that stuff, but nah, we're not going out there. And now it's time for a tea break. So one more residential story here. We sold a residential job. This one's kind of quick. And turns out the guy was an astronomical jerk. And we figured this out pretty early on. I mean, like, we had gotten a deposit, we had gotten a contract and stuff like that. And so it was at some point during conversations leading up to us actually going out on the job site and starting to do work, figured out he was a big jerk. And the reason I figured it out is because there was a lady here in the office who was up here just crying. And so, I see that and I'm like, all right, okay. And so I walk in and I'm just kind of like, what's happening? Like, are you okay? And come to find out, it was this person. And so I kind of investigated and we went over everything that had happened and all that stuff. And I just said, nope, we're not doing the job. Sorry, not happening. And so I told the guy, I said, hey, you're a jerk. We're not doing your work. I didn't say it just like that, but I mean, I did tell him because of the way that you've treated our team, we respectfully decline to do your work. Sorry, sir. Here's your deposit back. We didn't worry about the material we had ordered. We didn't worry about going through that whole thing with them. It wasn't anything super special. We used it on another job. No big deal. So we gave him the deposit back, told him no, and everybody went on about their business. So none of these four stories that I've told you have resulted in any kind of like real harsh backlash. Okay. And I'm not saying that if you did this tomorrow, it's not going to result in just a complete whirlwind of crap for you. And if it does, again, I'm sorry. But none of these scenarios have resulted in that. Nobody, to my knowledge, none of them went and left us a bunch of nasty reviews. They didn't go, they may talk crap to their friends at the bar that night. I don't know. But, it's not like they're bashing us in public on Facebook or any kind of social media or anything like that. I've not experienced any of that in any of these scenarios. But again, you might. If so, I'm sorry. But it's just not worth the headache. And it's not worth your team getting beat up. And to me, I've been chewed out before, right? I'll get chewed out again. I might get chewed out tonight. I don't know. But it's not worth seeing what it does to the people around us and to our team here. And I'm not going to let people do it if I have any control over that at all. Now, I will say sometimes people on our team screw up. And sometimes customers are like, hey, you screwed up. I can't believe you did this. What are you going to do to fix it? And I mean, on that one, I'm kind of like, hey, you screwed up. Here's my advice on how to handle the situation. But as long as people don't go over the top, I'm going to let them handle it. Right. I'm going to let them grow. I'm going to let them experience dealing with someone who's unhappy. And ultimately, our team members do make mistakes. I make mistakes. You make mistakes. We all do. We're all human. And like I said, I'll kind of guide them and coach them along through that thing, but I'm not going to swoop in and save the day for them. I'm going to let them learn and I'm going to let them grow. But yeah, like I said, there's just a line somewhere that you just don't cross, right? And again, I love growth. I love revenue. I love sending a bill and getting a check for a job that we did. But there's a there's a point where it's just not worth it, right? Anyway, so when I do find myself, like I said, I've been chewed out before, right? And it's happened a few times. And when I find myself on the phone with somebody like that, and that spitting mad guy, right? Rah, 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 rah. When I'm on the phone with them, I'm gonna say, "Hey, all right, I'm gonna, sir, sir, I'm here. I'm listening. I'm here to help you navigate through solving this dilemma." Whatever wording I use, right? And I just present them just like that. Calm, cool, collected. I'm here to help you solve your problem. Okay. But I'm not going to sit here and listen to you cuss me out. Okay. We can have a conversation. We can come to a resolution that we both can live with and we can get through this thing. But I'm not going to sit here and listen to you cuss me out. And if that's what you're going to do, like we'll pack up our toys and we'll go home. And there's an array of ways that you can word that. I normally don't throw the whole "we'll pack our toys up and go home" into the conversation. I was saying that to y'all, not to the customer. But there's an array of ways you can navigate through that thing, right? But I do tell them, I'm not going to listen to this. I'm here to help you find a solution. We've gotten to this point. I want to know how we got to this point, right? Because if there's a process or a system or something that we need to do better internally, I want us to do that. I want us to prevent the next person from being in the spot that you're in. So let's talk about what led you here. Let's talk about what your current issue is, and let's talk about how we're going to solve that. And that's kind of how I approach the beginning of the conversation, right? Let's lay out these kind of ground rules, right? This is my expectations, and here's what you can expect in return. And I would say, I don't know a time that I've started a conversation off like that and it did not go well. I think every time that I started off like that, they'll normally calm down a little bit, right? I understand they're mad. I understand they're frustrated. I get it. But calm down and let's get to the end. So I got one last story. And it's crazy how much time, a lot of times I spend more time preparing for this show than this show actually takes. So that's interesting, right? One last scenario. We've talked about this job before on this show. Got a call from an owner's rep and they say, "Hey, we need you to come out here and take a look at a site." And I say, "Okay, when do you want us to come?" "We want you here tomorrow." "Well, let me see if I can do that and I'll call you back." So got on the phone, orchestrated some folks, and we were out there the next day. Three of us rolled up on their job site to take a look at what they wanted because it's a big job. And we wanted to make sure we gave them all the attention that they needed or that we needed to provide for the project. So we go out there, we take a look at what they have now, and we take a look at what they wanted to do. So we go through the whole deal, measure, take pictures, all that stuff. They did have a site plan. And so we pulled out the site plan, which was printed on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. So it was a large site, right? It should have been a 24 by 36, but it was a little piece of paper. Anyway, we navigate through that thing and we go over the site plan, right? And I bet you we went through 6 or 8 or 10 different scenarios about where the fence could go, where the gates could go, all of this stuff, right? And at the end of it, we had a plan. We had a plan put together of ordering material, how long it was going to take to get the beginning parts of the material, get the post. Sorry. How long it's going to take to get the post, how long it would be before we start having panels arrive, all of that stuff, because I'd already been on the phone with suppliers, right? At some point during this process, I called them. I had a plan in place and I said, "Hey, this is what we can do, but we got to go." So we go through it, beat up some vendors, right? And I don't really beat them up, but I called multiple vendors and I was like, "Hey, I need you to figure out lead times." Right. Yeah, we can quote it. We're gonna quote it, but for right now, I need to know lead time. So I need you on the horn, see what you can do. Let's make it happen. Well, over the course of, man, probably a couple months, did this same job 4 times. And this was a big job. It was larger than your average fence job. Okay. Did the same thing 4 times. Well, at some point during these 4 times, we got a call to go look at another property. Same company owned it. Go look at another property. We go out again and we go through the whole rigmarole on another property. We're still working on the original one, right? Because we're still going through different bids. Sometimes it would change, sometimes it wouldn't. And I'm telling you right now, it was pretty frustrating to me because I'd sit there and look at the changes that they were making, and the changes they were dumb. And I would tell them, like, "Hey, this doesn't make any sense. Why are you doing things this way?" And I remember sitting for like 3 hours writing up this whole big email, okay, with all of this stuff in it and all of these suggestions and guidance and everything, because I'm like, "Man, we're going to do this job, right?" And anyway, so we go out to the second property, go through this whole thing again. They had some temporary fence on it. They had some permanent fence. So we did the site visit, clarify the plans, get on the phone with vendors. "We need temporary fence here tomorrow. You got to get it here. We need it." Bid the job, nothing. And then, so now at this point, we've bid 3 different projects. The original one 4 times. The temporary only bid that twice, I think. And then the permanent fence on site number 2, I think bid it 3 times. And they're all pretty big jobs. And it takes work to bid these big jobs, right? And they said, so then they start sending out emails. Well, one, they never sent an email for the temporary fence. I called, figured out what happened with it. They awarded it to somebody that was already on the site. No fence companies were there. I don't know how that happened or whatever, but they had awarded the temporary to somebody that was already on site. Okay. Permanent fence on site number 2. Get an email. Hey, the job's awarded. If you're the one that won, you got an email. Okay. Site number 1. Hey, the job's awarded. If you're the one that won, you got an email. Well, guess what? We didn't get any emails that we won anything. And so I I talked to him. Well, I didn't call him. I sent him an email because there was 4 people on the email. So I sent him an email and I said, "Hey, I really appreciate the opportunities that you guys have given us, and I appreciate what you're trying to do. And I'm not trying to be rude, right? Uh, I'm not trying to be ugly, but can you give me some feedback? Right? Was I 1% off or was I 40% off when I was bidding these jobs? Give me something." Because again, I told them, I said, "Hey, these are big projects. You got multiple vendors involved, multiple subcontractors, all this stuff takes a lot of energy to put it together. And I want to know, am I just completely wasting my time?" I didn't tell them that, right? But that was the question that I asked is, "Hey, can you give me some feedback? Can you let me know how I look on anything so that I know if I should keep pursuing more projects for you?" Again, 4 people got that email. That's probably been 2 weeks ago, and I've yet to get a reply from anyone. And so the reason I asked was because in the email, they're like, "Oh, hey, we've got some more stuff coming up. We're gonna send another invite for another project out to you." And I thought to myself, "Man, first of all, at a couple of points in the process of bidding all of this other stuff, I'd about got to the point already where I was like, you know what? I'm not dealing with it. They It's a big company. They think they're hot shots. They think that they're the most important person in the world. They want to say jump and you say, "Yes, sir, how high?" And again, people are like that, right? It just is, it's frustrating to me when people are like that, and I don't really like it. I don't appreciate it because we're all humans, and I think we should treat each other with some sort of respect, with well, not some sort, but just with respect. And a lot of times you run into people that just aren't like that, right? They got these huge egos and they're super arrogant and it's annoying. But anyway, yeah, so they had said, "Hey, we got another site coming." I said, "Okay, can you tell me, were we even close? Do we need to keep trying?" And 4 people got the email a couple weeks ago. Nobody has replied at all. And that's frustrating. And so my message on that piece right now is when vendors ask us for feedback, we should give it to them, right? Because we're either going to win or lose, right? Did we win a job? Did we lose a job? And we've all heard both ways, right? We've heard that we've won jobs. We've heard that we lost jobs. Well, guess what? Our vendors also want that feedback. We want the feedback. So do they. And so I think that's a thing that all of us, including myself, should be conscious of and should be aware of is that when we bid a job with vendors and they send you a follow up email, maybe sometimes 30 minutes later, "Hey, did you get awarded that job yet?" That annoys me and that makes me not want to reply. But when they reply and ask about the job after some reasonable amount of time, whatever that is, I think we kind of owe it to them, right? They put effort into the job just the same as we did, and we should give them feedback. But, anyways, on to the next thing here. So, all of these jobs are examples of people that we chose not to do business with. There's the one person who, like I said, just kind of goes on the back burner, right? You get those GCs. And man, you might sell them something every once in a blue moon, or you might not ever have sold them anything, but there might be a time. And so that's a choice for you to make, right? If I've got nothing to do, I'm going to bid it. I'm sorry. You might disagree, but that's just what I'm going to do. Uh, So, again, all examples. And we have to choose how to handle these scenarios because sometimes we're just hungry, right? And sometimes we just have to take what we can get. But sometimes we're not that hungry, and these people are just not all worth dealing with this kind of stuff. Don't treat us like crap. Don't think that we're beneath you. Don't I mean that's ridiculous, right? We're here to do a thing that you want done and we're here to do it well. And I think, a little bit of like respect and treat us like humans, I think that's fair. So just don't treat us like crap, right? Also, maybe just if I never can be competitive on a project for you, it would be cool for you to just stop asking because I don't need practice. I've done this plenty of times. I've bid plenty of jobs in my life that I know how to do it pretty well, and I don't need to practice over and over and over without any feedback. Well, yeah. And man, that's a whole nother thing, right? Trying to get feedback out of a lot of people is like trying to pull teeth. And you ask them, "Hey, how do we look on that job?" And you hear nothing. And you can ask them till the cows come home. And I mean, I will say in the GC world, there's a decent bit of people that will give you feedback, but there's also a lot of them that will say nothing. Time for a sip of tea. So again, when people ask us for feedback, I think it's fair that we give it to them. And it's okay to say no when the time is right to say no. I think that's the whole point of this conversation, right? Is sometimes it's okay to say no, but it's when the time is right. I don't think saying no because I'm too lazy to put in the work to bid a job. I don't think that's when the time is right. I don't think it's okay to say no just because I'm not feeling good today, right? I've made a commitment to provide a service and to represent these companies, the company that I work for, and a part of me representing that company is delivering the service that we're supposed to deliver. And so it doesn't matter. I'm having a bad day. I can't use that as an excuse to say no. Right? I just don't feel like doing it. It's too complicated. Oh man, I'd have to call three people to get a price instead of one. Like, no, none of that is a good excuse, right? That is not when the time is right to say no. But there are times when it is right. And I'll be honest, a lot of times I say yes to the craziest off the wall stuff that people call me with because I love it. I love the crazy, complicated. I mean, I want a job that's a complete logistical nightmare. Every piece on it has to be modified to make it work. It's got some kind of crazy multi layer coding that we have to find four people to apply. I want that job. I love it. And I love going through the process of just putting it all together and that challenge and that feeling when you get done and you're like, holy cow, there's 62 line items that I had to combine all together to complete this estimate. I love that. I'm 100% down for that. But don't come at me with that stuff if you only have $800 to spend, right? And so, again, when I get in those situations, I quickly want to handle a conversation about budget. And I want to say, hey, just looking at this thing, I got an idea. It's going to cost you between two and $300,000 to do this fence. Are you okay with that? I just did it last week. Went out and I met somebody on site and it was some, high security stuff and all that. Went out, met with them, and they say, "Hey, we want to do this, 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 and this." And I'm like, "Look, I'm looking at it. I'm telling you, you're expecting two, three, maybe two, $300,000, maybe even more. Are you cool with that budget?" And they said, "Oh no, we're not going to spend that much money." I was like, "All right, cool." I just saved myself a crap load of time trying to figure out how to do that job, right? And I would say if you're going to do that, you probably should have a pretty realistic expectation of what that number needs to be when you have that conversation. You don't want to tell them it's going to be two or $300,000, and then you go through the process and it's 100,000. Um, you want it to be a pretty realistic number, but I think it's okay to have budget conversations on the front end, especially with really complex, really specialty, high end kind of stuff. Just make sure they know what they're asking for and what they're getting. I've been through this thing where people just found a picture on the internet and they're saying, "Hey, I want that." Okay, well, if you want that, it's gonna cost you. And sometimes they're okay with it. Sometimes they say, "Oh, whoa, hold on. You got any alternatives?" And then I say, "Yeah, we can do this and it's going to accomplish a similar goal." And they're cool with that too, right? And they're grateful because you're saving their money. And anyway, there's a lot of different scenarios like that you can navigate through, right? Is just and I think that's a part of what we do. We provide that customer service and we have to understand that people that call us, they're not fence experts most of the time, right? We are the fence expert, and it's our job to provide them with expert professional suggestions and guidance and all of that stuff. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of ways we can navigate through that thing. And I think there's a lot of resources, right? If you find yourself in a spot where you don't really know how to navigate through the thing, you can leverage other people's experience. You If you're going to ask on social media, be specific enough about the question you're asking. Okay. Don't go in there and just say, "Hey, how do I bid this job?" Right. Well, there's more to it than that. Right. What do they want? What are you working with? What conditions are you in? What kind of equipment do you have? Like, I've seen plenty of examples where people say, you probably shouldn't. Right. If you don't understand the questions to ask, you probably shouldn't bid the job. And I think there's some validity to that statement, but not always, right? Sometimes you're capable of doing stuff. You're just inexperienced and you don't know the questions to ask because you don't know what you don't know. And that's okay, right? There's times where we all didn't know. There was a time we started somewhere and we didn't know anything. And I don't care. Maybe that goes all the way back to when you were wearing diapers and you didn't know, but at some point you didn't know. And we all learned. And so we got to support each other and sometimes help someone else along that journey of learning. But yeah, like I said, I say yes to crazy stuff. So if you run into a job that's super crazy and you think, "Man, there's no way anybody's going to do this." Call me up. I got you. I got you. But when I'll say no, you've seen examples, right? People that are a little bit intolerable is really the one, well, not a little bit intolerable. People that are completely intolerable is definitely one I'll say no to. When I feel like I'm wasting my time bidding jobs over and over and over again, I don't get any feedback. You don't even tell me like, "Oh man, you were close on that one, but you missed it by $4." Like, come on. And let me just tell you what's frustrating about customers, okay? So I told you we went out the last scenario where we met the owner's rep, big, big dog site thing. uh, so I'll tell you what's frustrating about all of that stuff is that I really question whether other people put the energy in that we do sometimes. And that's not me trying to knock anybody else that's involved in anything we do here locally or anybody anywhere else in the country or the world or whatever. But I always think, man, we put a lot of energy into helping them come up with a solution or really a bid package, right? And I mean, that thing, they went from having no bid package, match the existing fence, whatever that is, just do it. And then they came out with the craziest bid package I've ever seen in my life, talking about how we had to be on call 24/7 for 3 years after it was done. If we got a phone call, we had to guarantee we'd be on site in 4 hours and have it fixed 8 hours later. I said, "No, you've lost your freaking mind. Right? You're not going to call me at midnight on Christmas and me be out there by 4 a.m. It's not happening." And that's where my mind goes, right? When I hear I'm gonna get a phone call and have to be there in 4 hours, immediately I go to that, like, crazy worst case scenario kinda stuff, and I just say, "Nope, not doing it. It's not gonna happen. You're crazy. Take that crap out of there." And, I mean, I work with them, right, to refine that whole bid package, and it just makes me wonder, do other people do that, right? And why if I do all of that, you would think it would give me some brownie points. If I'm doing something that other people are not willing to do, you would think it would give me some brownie points and me become more of a trusted vendor. And to be honest with you, I don't see evidence of it. I can't stop because I am who I am. And I believe, again, we're providing a service and that's a part of the service. But I don't know that it gets us any brownie points. Does, maybe it sells us jobs. Maybe it doesn't help us at all. I'm not sure. I don't. I don't know. It's a crazy thing. So, all right. Well, I think I think that's it. I think I'm done here. I think I've gotten on enough soapboxes, and I think I've covered quite a few scenarios. And if you have any questions, y'all can always call me. Phone number is on the bottom of the screen every time. 901-878-4987. Reach out if I can do anything to help you. If you have any questions, I'm always happy to have a conversation with anyone out there who needs something. And with that, I'll see you next time.